The repair bay of Outpost Meridian hummed with the quiet efficiency of well-maintained equipment, a sanctuary of order in the chaos of frontier space. Alex Chen had spent the better part of 3 years turning the cramped workspace into something approaching perfection, every tool in its designated place, every diagnostic scanner calibrated to specifications that would make core world technicians weep with envy. Another exciting day in paradise, he muttered to himself, reviewing the morning's repair schedule on his data pad. 1 plasma conduit replacement, 2 navigation computer debugs, and what appears to be a coffee maker that's achieved sentience and is holding the mess hall hostage. The last item wasn't entirely a joke. Frontier stations attracted the kind of equipment that developed personality quirks after too many years of improvised maintenance and creative modifications. Alex had learned to approach each repair job with equal parts technical expertise and diplomatic finesse. The proximity alarm chimed softly, announcing an incoming vessel. Alex glanced at the external sensors, expecting to see another battered cargo hauler or patrol ship limping in for routine maintenance. Instead, his screen showed something that made him pause mid-coffee sip. The ship was small, clearly designed for a single occupant, with sleek lines that suggested both speed and stealth capabilities. But it was the damage that caught his attention, scorch marks across the hull that spoke of recent combat, and energy signatures that his scanners couldn't quite classify. Well, Alex said to the empty repair bay, this should be interesting. 20 minutes later, the ship settled onto the docking platform with the gentle thud of experienced piloting. Alex ran through his standard pre-contact checklist. Oxygen mix verified, universal translator online, emergency medical kit within reach, then activated the airlock sequence. The woman who emerged from the ship made Alex's breath catch in his throat. She moved with the controlled grace of someone trained in combat, but there was a weariness to her steps that spoke of exhaustion pushed beyond normal limits. Her armor, if it could be called armor, seemed to flow around her body like liquid metal given form, its surface covered in intricate patterns that pulsed with soft bioluminescent light. But it was her face that made Alex forget every technical protocol he'd ever learned. She appeared human in most respects, with features that would have been considered beautiful in any sector of the galaxy. The only visible difference was her ears, elegant points that swept upward and back, lending her an otherworldly appearance that was both alien and achingly familiar. "Are you the technician?" she asked, her voice carrying an accent Alex couldn't identify. "Alex Chen." "That's me," he replied, then caught himself staring and attempted to recover some semblance of professionalism. "Welcome to Outpost Meridian. I'm assuming you're here for repairs." She nodded, but something in her expression suggested the situation was more complex than a standard maintenance request. "My name is Vera Lightweaver. I was told you have experience with unconventional technologies." Alex's gaze traveled over her armor again, noting details he'd missed in his initial assessment. The bioluminescent patterns weren't decorative, they were diagnostic displays, showing system status and energy flow patterns. More importantly, the armor wasn't just worn, it was integrated, connected to her body through what appeared to be a network of biomechanical interfaces. "I've worked on biotech before," he said carefully. "Though I have to admit, nothing quite like what you're wearing." "Is it Altarian synthesis work? Maybe something from the vegan bioforges?" "Neither," Vera replied, then paused as if deciding how much to reveal. "It's Guardian technology. From the synthesis worlds, before they..." She trailed off, her expression clouding with something that looked like grief. Alex had heard rumors about the synthesis worlds, distant systems where the boundaries between biology and technology had supposedly been erased, creating civilizations that existed in perfect harmony between organic and artificial life. Most spacers consider them myths, stories told in station bars after too many drinks. "Well," he said, "whatever the origin, I can see you've got some significant damage. Want to tell me what happened?" Vera's hand moved unconsciously to a section of her armor where the intricate plating showed hairline cracks spreading like frost across a window. "Combat. Pursuit. The usual complications of traveling through sectors where peace is more theoretical than practical." Alex nodded, familiar with the realities of frontier life. Let's get you up on the diagnostic platform and see what we're dealing with. I've got scanners that can map biotech integration patterns without interfering with system functions. He gestured toward the center of the repair bay, where a circular platform waited beneath an array of scanning equipment that represented his life's work. Most of the devices were standard issue, but several were his own modifications, improvements born from necessity and refined through years of fixing the unfixable. Vera approached the platform with obvious reluctance, each step seeming to require effort beyond the physical. When she reached the edge, she stopped, her hands trembling slightly as they rested at her sides. "I need to ask you something," she said quietly, her voice carrying a weight that had nothing to do with mechanical failure. "Of course. What is it?" Vera looked up at him, and Alex saw something in her eyes that made his chest tighten, a depth of exhaustion that went far beyond physical weariness, a kind of bone-deep fatigue that spoke of carrying burdens too heavy for one person to bear. "When you look at me," she said, her words carefully chosen, "what do you see?" Alex blinked, caught off guard by the unexpected question. "I see someone who needs help. Someone whose armor is damaged and probably causing significant discomfort. Someone who's traveled a long way to find a technician who might be able to." "No," Vera interrupted, her voice soft but firm. "That's what you see when you look at the armor. When you look at me, what do you see?" The question hung in the air between them like a challenge, and Alex found himself really looking at her for the first time since she'd entered his repair bay. Past the technological marvel of her biomechanical integration, past the obvious damage and system failures, past everything that his technical training told him to focus on. He saw someone who was tired in ways that sleep couldn't fix. Someone who moved with the careful control of a person holding themselves together through sheer force of will. Someone whose eyes held the kind of pain that came from losses too profound to heal with time alone. "I see someone who's been carrying something heavy for too long," he said honestly. "Someone who's used to fixing everyone else's problems but maybe hasn't had anyone to help with her own." Vera's breath caught, and for a moment her carefully maintained composure wavered. "Don't fix my armor," she said, the words seeming to escape before she could stop them. "Fix me." The repair bay fell silent except for the gentle hum of equipment and the sound of Vera's armor systems cycling through their diagnostic patterns. Alex realized that everything he thought he understood about this repair job had just changed completely. Alex set down his diagnostic scanner with the careful deliberation of someone buying time to process an unexpected revelation. In 3 years of frontier repair work, he'd encountered plenty of unusual requests, sentient AIs asking for personality adjustments, bioships needing therapy for psychological trauma, even a toaster that demanded workers' compensation after achieving consciousness. But this was different. "Vera," he said gently, "I'm a technician, not a counselor. I fix machines, not people." "Are you so certain there's a difference?" she asked, settling onto the edge of the diagnostic platform with movements that suggested every motion required careful calculation. "Look closer at what you're seeing." Alex activated his biotech scanner, then stopped cold as the readings appeared on his display. The armor wasn't just integrated with Vera's body, it was keeping her alive. Neural interfaces snaked through her nervous system, regulating heartbeat, respiration, hormone levels, even brain chemistry. Organic components pulsed with her circulation, while synthetic elements filtered toxins and maintained cellular repair functions. "This isn't armor," he breathed. "This is a life support system." "Guardian symbiosis," Vera confirmed, her voice carrying the tone of someone explaining a fundamental truth that others rarely understood. "We don't wear our technology, we become it. The bonding begins in childhood, growing stronger over years until the distinction between self and symbiont becomes meaningless." Alex studied the scanner readings with growing amazement and concern. The biomechanical integration was flawless, representing biotechnology centuries ahead of anything he'd encountered. But the system was failing, organic components showing signs of cellular breakdown while synthetic elements struggled to compensate for biological failures. "The quantum substrate is degrading," he observed, pointing to patterns on his display. These organic matrices, they need some kind of specialized environment to maintain cellular integrity, don't they? Vera nodded, her expression darkening. Quantum gardens. Living ecosystems where the boundary between matter and energy becomes fluid, where synthetic and organic life can merge without rejection. My people cultivated them for millennia, creating the perfect environment for guardian symbiosis. And now? Gone. The word carried the weight of civilizations. Digital plague. It started as an upgrade to our synthesis protocols, a way to enhance the connection between guardian and symbiont. Instead, it turned our technology against us. The quantum gardens withered, the synthesis became corrupted, and within a generation, most of my people were dead. Alex felt his throat tighten. He'd seen the aftermath of technological disasters before. Worlds where AI uprisings had left cities empty, systems where nanoplagues had consumed entire ecosystems. But this felt different, more personal. How many survivors? He asked quietly. Unknown. I've been searching for 2 years, following rumors and energy signatures, hoping to find other guardians who escaped before the corruption spread. Vera's hand moved to touch a section of her armor where the bioluminescent patterns flickered erratically. My symbiont is dying, Alex. Without a quantum garden to sustain the organic components, the integration is breaking down. I have maybe weeks before complete system failure. The clinical part of Alex's mind immediately began cataloging potential solutions, synthetic substitutes for the organic components, mechanical replacements for failing biological systems, ways to extend the symbiont's life through technological intervention. But something in Vera's tone suggested that technical fixes weren't what she was looking for. You've tried repairs before, he said, reading the subtext in her expression. 7 different technicians, 3 biotech specialists, and a synthetic consciousness that claimed to understand organic mechanical integration better than its creators. Vera's laugh carried no humor. Each attempt made things worse. The symbiont isn't just technology, it's a living being that's been my partner since I was 6 years old. Trying to fix it like a broken machine is like performing surgery with a plasma torch. Alex lowered his scanner, beginning to understand the true nature of her request. You're not looking for someone to repair your armor. You're looking for someone to help you say goodbye. Tears gathered in Vera's eyes, the first crack in the composure she'd maintained since entering his repair bay. I've been alone for so long, Alex. Watching my symbiont die by degrees, knowing that when it goes, I'll be the last guardian in the galaxy. Every technician I've visited sees the armor first, the person second. They want to fix the fascinating technology, not help the woman who's losing her oldest friend. The bioluminescent patterns across Vera's armor began shifting, responding to her emotional state with waves of color that were beautiful and heartbreaking in equal measure. Alex realized he was witnessing something extraordinary, a conversation between partners that transcended the boundary between biology and technology. Tell me about your symbiont, he said, pulling up a chair beside the diagnostic platform. What's it like, having a technological partner that's also a living being? Vera's expression softened, and for the first time since her arrival, she smiled. Imagine having a best friend who knows your thoughts before you think them, who feels your pain and shares your joy, who's been with you through every moment of triumph and failure. Now imagine that friend is also your immune system, your strength enhancer, your environmental protection, your connection to technologies that exist beyond normal physics. That sounds incredible, Alex said honestly. It is. Was. Vera's smile faded. But it also means that losing your symbiont isn't just losing equipment, it's losing part of your soul. I've been grieving for months, watching my partner fade while maintaining the pretense that this is just a technical problem with a technical solution. The armor's light patterns flickered again, more urgently this time, and Alex's scanners detected a cascade failure beginning in the primary life support systems. Vera noticed his expression and glanced at her own internal displays. It's accelerating, she said matter-of-factly. The emotional stress of talking about it is triggering sympathetic responses in the organic components. Ironic, really. The more honestly I express my feelings about losing my symbiont, the faster I lose it. Alex watched the readouts with growing alarm, but also with a strange sense of clarity. Every instinct he'd developed as a technician screamed at him to start emergency repairs, to stabilize the failing systems, to do something to prevent the technological catastrophe unfolding before him. Instead, he reached out and took Vera's hand. "Then let's not think of this as a repair job," he said quietly. "Let's think of it as something else entirely." Alex's hand was warm against Vera's, and she felt something she hadn't experienced in months, the simple comfort of human contact without the immediate expectation of technical solutions. The gesture was so unexpected, so contrary to every interaction she'd had with repair specialists, that her carefully maintained emotional barriers began to crumble. "I don't understand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Don't you want to run diagnostics? Analyze the failure patterns?" Every other technician immediately started talking about synthetic replacements and mechanical bypasses. "Those things might be useful eventually," Alex replied, settling more comfortably in his chair without releasing her hand. "But right now, I think what you need is for someone to listen to the person, not examine the equipment." Vera's armor responded to her emotional state with waves of soft blue light, patterns that Alex recognized as distress signals but which carried an odd beauty, like bioluminescent creatures in deep ocean waters. She noticed his fascination with the display and managed a small smile. "My symbiont is trying to comfort me," she explained. "It knows I'm upset, so it's producing light patterns designed to be soothing. We've been partners for so long that its responses to my emotions are automatic." "What was it like?" Alex asked gently. "Growing up with a living technology as your companion?" For the first time since entering his repair bay, Vera allowed herself to relax, to think about memories instead of system failures. "Imagine being 6 years old and having your best friend literally grow with you. The symbiont started as something the size of my palm, just a small biomechanical creature that my parents introduced during the bonding ceremony. Over the years, it learned my physiology, adapted to my needs, became part of my body and my identity." The armor's light patterns shifted to warmer tones as Vera spoke about happier times. Alex found himself genuinely curious about the technology, but more interested in understanding what it had meant to her as a person. Did it have a personality of its own? Yes and no. Vera paused, searching for words to explain a relationship that existed beyond normal categories. "It's not sentient in the way you or I are conscious, but it has preferences, reactions, ways of responding to situations that feel distinctly individual. Sometimes I could sense its enthusiasm when we were engaged in combat, or its contentment when we were in harmony with our environment." Alex nodded, beginning to understand why traditional repair approaches had failed. So when technicians tried to treat it like non-sentient equipment, it was like asking someone to perform surgery on their spouse while treating the patient as an inanimate object. Vera's voice carried pain that went beyond physical discomfort. The symbiont would resist their attempts to modify it, which they interpreted as system malfunctions rather than a living being's protective responses. The conversation was interrupted by an alert from Alex's monitoring systems. Vera's armor was experiencing another cascade failure, this one more severe than the previous episode. Environmental controls were fluctuating, cellular repair functions were operating sporadically, and the neural interfaces were showing increasing instability. "I should go," Vera said, starting to rise from the platform. "I don't want my symbiont's death throes to damage your equipment." "Stay," Alex said firmly, his hand tightening gently on hers. "Let me ask you something. If this were a friend who was dying, what would you want to do? Fix them, or be with them?" Vera stopped, her amber eyes widening as she understood what he was suggesting. "You're asking me to let it die. I'm asking you to consider the possibility that fighting the inevitable might be causing more suffering than acceptance." Alex's voice was gentle but direct. "Your symbiont is dying because it can't survive away from its natural environment. Every repair attempt has been like trying to keep a deep-sea creature alive in a desert, technically possible for a while, but ultimately cruel. Tears began flowing down Vera's cheeks, triggering a response from her armor that created patterns of light unlike anything Alex had seen before, colors that seemed to exist in spectrums beyond normal perception, beauty born from the intersection of technology and grief. "I've been so afraid," she whispered. "Afraid of being alone, afraid of being the last guardian, afraid of forgetting what it felt like to be whole." "You don't have to be alone," Alex said quietly. "And being whole doesn't necessarily mean staying the same forever." They sat together in silence for several minutes, watching the armor's light patterns shift through what seemed like emotional seasons: grief, fear, acceptance, and something that might have been hope. Alex found himself thinking about his own losses, the family he'd failed to save, the way he'd thrown himself into repair work as a substitute for fixing what truly mattered. "I lost everyone too," he said eventually. "Different circumstances, but the same result. My wife and daughter were killed in a pirate raid on New Centauri colony. I was off station on a repair job when it happened." Vera looked at him with new understanding. "Is that why you became a frontier technician? To fix things because you couldn't fix what mattered most?" "Probably." Alex's smile was rueful. "Though I think I've been approaching it wrong. I've been trying to repair broken things instead of helping people adapt to change." Another alert chimed, this one indicating critical system failures across multiple biomechanical interfaces. But instead of panic, Vera seemed calmer, more resolved. "If I let my symbiont die," she asked, "what happens to me? Without the life support integration, my natural physiology can't handle the enhanced cellular functions I've become dependent on." Alex had been studying her bio-readings for the past hour, and he had an answer ready. "Your body is more adaptable than you think. The symbiont enhanced your natural capabilities, but it didn't replace them entirely. With gradual system shutdown and proper medical support, your physiology should be able to readjust to operating independently." "And the emotional aspects? Losing a partner I've had for 20 years. That," Alex said honestly, "will probably hurt for a long time. But you'll survive it, and eventually, you might discover new ways of being whole." Vera closed her eyes, and Alex could see her having a conversation with her symbiont that existed beyond words or technology. When she opened them again, her expression held a peace he hadn't seen before. "Okay," she said. "Help me say goodbye." The process of helping a living technology die with dignity, Alex discovered, required equal parts technical expertise and emotional support. Over the next several hours, he carefully transferred Vera's essential life support functions to the station's medical systems while allowing her symbiont to gradually shut down its integrated operations. "It's fighting the transition," Vera observed, watching readouts that showed the symbiont's organic components struggling to release their hold on her nervous system. 20 years of partnership doesn't end easily. "Maybe we can help it understand," Alex suggested. He'd been studying Guardian technology since their conversation began, cross-referencing what Vera had told him with fragments of information in various databases. "According to what little I can find about symbiont psychology, they respond to intention and emotional clarity. If you could communicate your gratitude for the partnership while also giving it permission to let go." Vera nodded, placing her hands flat against the sections of armor that housed the symbiont's primary consciousness nodes. The bioluminescent patterns responded immediately, creating spirals of warm light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice carrying the weight of 20 years of shared experience. "For growing with me, for protecting me, for being my partner through everything we've faced together. You've given me more than I ever dreamed possible." The armor's response was extraordinary. Colors beyond the normal spectrum flooded across its surface, creating patterns that spoke of joy, gratitude, and something that could only be described as love. Alex felt privileged to witness this farewell between beings who had shared existence in ways he was only beginning to understand. "But now," Vera continued, tears flowing freely, "I need to learn how to be myself without you. And you need to rest, to return to whatever comes next for living technologies. We'll always be connected by the memories we share. The symbiont's light patterns gradually shifted from complex spirals to simpler, more peaceful configurations. Alex monitored the bioreadings as organic components began their final shutdown sequence, each system releasing its integration with Vera's physiology in carefully orchestrated stages. "There's something else," Vera said during a pause in the deactivation process. Guardian symbiosis includes genetic memory storage, ways of preserving not just information, but the actual consciousness patterns of previous generations. My symbiont carries the memories of the quantum gardens, the synthesis protocols, everything needed to recreate Guardian technology under the right circumstances. Alex looked up from his monitoring equipment. "You're saying your symbiont contains the knowledge to rebuild your entire civilization?" "In theory, yes. But it requires specific environmental conditions to transfer that information safely." Vera gestured toward the station's hydroponic bays, visible through the repair bay's observation windows. Living ecosystems where biological and technological elements can merge without rejection. Understanding dawned in Alex's mind. "You want to plant it. Give the genetic memories a chance to grow into something new. If you're willing to help," Vera said quietly. "It wouldn't be the same as the quantum gardens of my homeworld, but it might be enough to preserve something of Guardian knowledge for future generations." Alex didn't hesitate. "Of course. This station has some of the most advanced hydroponic systems in the sector. If we can adapt them to support biotechnological integration." Working together, they carefully extracted the symbiont's genetic memory core, a small, crystalline structure that pulsed with its own inner light. The extraction process was painful for Vera, like losing a limb, but she endured it with the stoic acceptance of someone who understood the necessity of letting go. The hydroponic bay welcomed their unusual addition with surprising adaptability. Within hours of planting the memory core, new growth began appearing, not quite plant, not quite machine, but something that existed beautifully between categories. Alex modified the environmental controls to provide the specific energy frequencies the growth required, while Vera shared her knowledge of Guardian cultivation techniques. "It's working," Alex said 3 days later, watching as the biotechnological garden expanded beyond anything he'd thought possible. "The integration is stable, and the genetic memories are expressing themselves in new configurations." Vera, now free of her dying armor and dressed in simple station clothing, looked more fragile than she had as a Guardian but somehow more genuinely herself. Her natural physiology had adapted to independent operation more successfully than either of them had hoped, though she tired more easily and moved with less of her original fluid grace. "I feel different," she admitted, observing her reflection in the hydroponic bay's control panel. "Smaller, maybe. More limited. But also more present, if that makes sense." "It does," Alex said, understanding exactly what she meant. "Sometimes losing what we think defines us helps us discover who we actually are." Over the following months, their partnership deepened into something neither had expected. Vera's knowledge of biotechnology combined with Alex's engineering expertise created solutions for problems they hadn't even known existed. The growing garden became a sanctuary for other travelers carrying biomechanical integration, refugees from various technological disasters who needed someone who understood that living technology required more than conventional repair approaches. "We should probably discuss what we're building here," Alex said one evening as they watched the sunset through the garden's transparent dome. The biotechnological plant swayed in responses to stimuli that had nothing to do with air currents, their movements creating patterns of light that were both alien and oddly familiar. "What do you think we're building?" Vera asked, settling beside him on the observation bench they'd constructed from station materials and living wood grown from the memory garden. "A new kind of synthesis," Alex replied thoughtfully. "Not the Guardian way, not purely mechanical approaches, but something that honors both the technological and the personal aspects of integration." Vera smiled, the expression transforming her face in ways that her armor had never allowed. "I think," she said, "that's exactly what my symbiont hoped would happen when it chose to trust you with its genetic memories." Alex took her hand. A gesture that had become natural between them over the months of working together. Do you regret it? Giving up the guardian life? I regret losing my people, Vera said honestly. I regret the circumstances that made that choice necessary. But I don't regret choosing to live rather than simply survive. The garden around them pulsed with gentle bioluminescence as evening settled over the station, creating an environment that was neither fully technological nor purely organic, but something new and beautiful that honored both categories without being limited by either. Besides, Vera added with a smile that held all the warmth her armor had never been able to express, I've discovered that being fixed doesn't always mean being repaired. Sometimes it means learning to grow in new directions. Alex squeezed her hand gently, watching as their joint project continued its slow transformation of the station's hydroponic bay into something unprecedented. A place where damaged beings could find healing not through restoration, but through adaptation and renewal. In the end, he reflected, the most important repairs were often the ones that helped people become something better than they had been before.